Good evening, welcome to Simpson at 8. Tonight we talk rugby league and we are joined by none other than the Fiji Bati coach himself, Brandon Costin. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Stan.
So let's just get to it. How would you describe the state of rugby league in Fiji?
Really compared to other Pacific nations, it's right at the top. Right? Fiji has a really well-established local competition. And when you compare that to Samoa and Tonga, they have very little local competition. So I think that puts us
They're
at
more
an
relying
advantage.
on the NRL players who are playing
Definitely,
overseas.
they rely on imports, and heritage-based players, yes.
So Papua New Guinea has a strong domestic, because they've played league for a very long time.
Papua New Guinea has a strong domestic league because they've got a Queensland Cup side based in the country, and they're able to play against real quality rugby league teams, and they're in a professional environment every day of their life. So they're actual professional rugby league players in Papua New Guinea. So it makes them really strong.
Yeah, well, here our league competition, is very much, you could get amateur,
Yep.
very grassroots, not much sponsorship, very weak sponsorship, and and players are switching between the codes.
Yes.
Quite a bit. So that's the scenario that you have before you. As you come into the job, what are some of the things you would like to see change to move from there?
I think the first thing you got to do is think about the player. Like, why does the player want to play the game? Like, why does he want to choose rugby league over rugby union? Why is he switching between codes? So most rugby league players I've met in Fiji, their main aim is to get a professional contract.
Mm.
They would really love nothing else but to be able to assist their family, their community and their village financially.
And do something they love.
Absolutely. So if we can provide a pathway for young men and young women nowadays to find a professional contract, I think we start to get a lot of ownership at that grassroots level because they can see the pathway that's there for them.
But, we all know not everybody will be able to get a professional contract. So, a big bulk of the players will have to play for the enjoyment of it or, because they're part of a club.
Yes.
And part of a neighborhood club. And, quite a bit of the teams now, they're driven by players' loyalty to either if it's a village team or if it's a neighborhood team, because that's the way league is structured in this country. Or with a provincial thing. So they're driven more by loyalty to that than anything else, really.
Oh yeah, and that's fair enough. You see, sides like Sembeto Roosters, like they all live in that really big village and they're really close, and I think that assists in building a strong team culture for them.
So how do we take that to the next level, you think?
Well, we've got to look at how do we build a strong team culture, and when we're looking at team-based dynamics, you've got to sort of look at things and create a sense of equilibrium within the group. So a lot of as a coach, you're the boss, and you're usually only the boss when it goes bad and you get in trouble. But when things are good and players are playing well, as a coach, you want to put all the accolades and the applause onto the players, to really create some harmony within that playing group. At the elite level or at a higher level, as a coach, you're just trying to emulate that village type community to build that real strong team dynamic.
And I guess money is required to develop the sport, like anything. So to take it to the level, you need the sponsorship and I guess the investment coming into it, So, we've got quite a decent league competition, but it still seems to not have been able to move to the other level. That's what I'm trying to get at. So,
I think
what would get the money?
Well, at the moment, we've got really good sponsorship from Vodafone, and they put money into the Vodafone Cup competition, which is strong. They put money into the Fiji secondary schools competition, which is strong. They put money into primary schools development, which is strong, like it's going really great. And they also put money into Fiji Bati, which is, our best rugby league team in Fiji. So from that end, from the work that Vodafone's doing with rugby league is all really positive. There does need to be more money. There does need to be more sponsorship, because if we start wanting to get any sort of high performance or academy type structures for teens, and giving them that opportunity or that pathway to get a professional contract, then we need a lot more money.
You need the resources put in place for
yes.
that, to establish that structure, that consistency. Because we have shown that we can compete at the highest level.
Yes.
We've made, I think, 3 Rugby World Cup semi-finals.
Yes.
And then that was the limit really, because then we met teams like Australia or England. We have beaten New Zealand.
Yes.
But then usually after such a high performance, maybe the next year we'll play Papua New Guinea or something, and we'd lose, So what you think what do you think is causing that inconsistency in our performances?
Well, really, I think that what happens is each coach or a new coach that comes in, or each new team that comes in, they're event focused. They go, right, this game, this is all we focus on. Where what I've tried to do, and I had this conversation with our Bati side last week, is it's not about being event focused. It's about going from era to era. And that has to be from World Cup to World Cup. So that's a 4-year era. And this is a journey. So when we play against Lebanon, our goal when we come up against Samoa in the next game is to improve, is to grow from that performance. We have the same plays, the same moves, the same structures, the same calls, but we're able to grow a little bit more and grow a little bit more. And hopefully by 2021 World Cup, we're actually at our peak because we've practiced every single game and every single training
And it's taken
session.
a process and a time to do it.
Exactly.
And in some ways, one could argue we haven't really had a consistent coach.
Exactly.
And you're the first one that's going to be based in country, and you'll be here for 3 years.
Yes.
Take us right to the 2021 World Cup. So we'll leave it there for now. We'll talk about how you got here and where you plan to take the rugby league in the country. You're watching Simpson at 8. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. You're watching Simpson at 8. We're with Fiji Bati coach Brendan Costin. Now, you took on the job, the Fiji Bati coaching job in February this year.
Yep.
So let's talk about the process. How did that happen?
Well, it was advertised on a lot of forums in Australia, job available. So it was obviously send in your CV and a letter and see what would happen from there.
So they
I think they interviewed 4 or 5.
4 or 5. Yes.
applicants,
So how was the selection process? Right? What did it take to convince them that you were the right person for the job?
It's a good question. And I've got a lot of this information after the event, but when I read the job description, as soon as I read it, I just went, "That's me." I can do all of those things, because really, as head coach in country, you have to be really good at about 6 or 7 different things. You can't be the very best coach and really bad at development, because a big part of my job is developing local players.
What was in the job description?
So we needed to have experience in development, especially with secondary schools, like elite player pathway development. Needed to have at least NRL coaching experience. Needed to be a level 3 coach, and you had to have been that for at least the last 5 years. Also had to have some level of strength and conditioning experience. Now, the beauty of all this is, yes, I have NRL coaching experience. Yes, I used to own my own gym, so I had strength and conditioning. I got my strength and conditioning certificates. I lived in Samoa for 13 months and ran development in the country there, and I also worked on the north coast of New South Wales doing elite player pathway
So
development.
you had the full works.
Ticked every
you
box.
had every box. So you were there, and they said you were the person for the job. And did they tell you that you had to be staying in Fiji all this time?
Yeah, that was
part of the.
that was part of the criteria.
And you had no problem with that.
Oh, I was looking forward to it. Like, I lived in Samoa, so I had a good idea of what to expect. But I must say, Fiji is just 1,000 times better than Samoa. Sorry, sorry for any
Yeah,
Samoans.
there's someone viewers that's watching. That's for you. Now you played rugby league at
Yes.
the top level. Rabbitohs,
Yep.
Roosters, Raiders. You went to England, Bradford Bulls, one of the top clubs there. So what are some of the things that you've learned from your playing days that you think will be useful for the local players?
One of the biggest things that you can ever learn is the ones that make it, like get to the very top, they don't do what everyone else does. So if you just train with your club and you just do that level of fitness, you need to do more than that. If you just do the gym program that they get, you need more than that. Like, to get right to the top, you need to be in the 1%. You got to be that much different to everyone else. And it's not about skill.
Different in what way? So,
Well, it's good. Like, it's not about skill. It doesn't mean you have to be the best player. I had a good chat with an NRL club recently, and I said, I'm in Fiji, I'm developing players. If I was to get players to come to your club, what are you looking for? And they said, 20% of all our players are the superstars, the really good, the elite of the elite, the Cameron Smith, the Jonathan Thurston. So we've already got those. They're already in our club and they're 14, 15, 16. We've already got them. We need the other 80%, and they're hard workers.
the hard workers.
We really want...
That's the bulk of the players.
Exactly.
Bulk of the team.
So what they're saying is, when you're teaching your development work, reward hard work, reward effort, because they're the people we want. When they start to grow and they start to develop their skill and they are good players, we know 100% that work effort is their base. So we know they're hard workers, and yes, they've got some good skill to go with it. So that would be my best advice to any player. Do the 1% of the hard work stuff that no one else would do. Train on Christmas
Do the
Day when
extra-
no one
the
else
extra
would do.
work,
Yeah,
so to speak.
you've got to be that just a little bit different.
That's interesting, and that's wise advice. Now you know these clubs, Rabbitohs, they have a long history. They have a strong
Yes.
culture. You know what it's like being part of something, you know, that historic, you know, looked up to, and how can you build something like that around the aura of the Fiji and Bati?
Yeah, I think Rabbitohs was special for me because from about 4 years of age, anyone that asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said a Rabbitoh. So it was my ultimate goal to play first grade for South Sydney since I was about 4 years old. You know, and I was able to achieve that. I played for like a side in the UK, Huddersfield. That's where rugby league was born. So it has a really strong history as well. So when we're talking about the Bati, I think like we need to create our own history. Like you've got to create your own culture, and it needs to be player-led. So the players are buying into the culture. Now, obviously, as a coach, you have a say in the direction of the culture, but what we spoke about recently in our camp is we are the most successful Pacific nation in rugby league. 3 semi-finals in the World Cups. We got beaten by Australia in all 3. How do we become the side that beats Australia? And that's our journey in this era over the next 2.5 years. We need to build a culture that can beat Australia.
That pride, that emotion in wearing the
Yes.
Bati jersey. Yeah, and so what is required to beat Australia?
You got to be really, really good at the little things. You cannot give them any opportunity to attack.
Because we've been competitive for periods,
Yeah.
but then you fall apart. So to
Well,
speak.
you know, the viewers probably aren't going to like this, but you can't have Fijian flair against Australia because they wear you down. They play a real percentage-based game where things fall in their favour. You know, Like they're not pushing passes, they're not pushing offloads, they're not doing the long passes, they're not doing flick passes. They're just grounding out the wins. And sometimes it can be called boring rugby league. But if you want to beat Australia, that's how you do it. If you play with flair, you make too many errors and you give them way too many opportunities to put pressure on you.
They turn it around on you.
Yes, they do.
So you try to develop the structure, sort of says that a process and a system in place for the way we play?
Well, absolutely. We want to play that disciplined, structured style of rugby league, but we do know that Fijians are really good athletes.
We've got the explosiveness to finish it
So
off.
we have to use that to our advantage. Also, we do know that we have the good skills, the hand-eye coordination and the flair, but we have to use it in a way that's an asset for us, and not a detriment. So Australia can't use our flair as their asset. We make mistakes, so therefore they've got the ball. So we're practicing this at the moment. So against Lebanon, it was about being really basic and really simple, because that becomes our platform then for Samoa. And then we can add on a little bit of discipline stuff and a little bit of flair stuff. And then we just keep adding on in this era until we are that side in 2021 that does have the potential to beat Australia.
To do it, and we can do that. I mean, Tonga has shown it. We have shown it. So
yes.
we're close.
We're very close.
Yeah. Now, one of the big issues constantly faced by rugby league players, especially those that make it to the top and become famous and join our club, is discipline.
Yes.
You talked about discipline on the field. There's also a big issue of discipline off the field. That's a big element of sports today, especially with the huge media attention on these players. So commitment, having the right attitude. We have found a lot of Fijian, Pacific Island players, as well as players from Australia and New Zealand, struggling in this regard. They struggle to maybe conform or move, but this is the standards that have been set. So how important is it? That's one other part that needs to be addressed, isn't it?
Well, that has to fall in line with our culture. We did speak about discipline. We did speak about playing with flair. But really that's a very small part of the culture that you create. Very lucky to be working with Elijah Tangituimua, who is a chaplain for Fiji, has been the chaplain for the last 3 World Cups. I sit with him and we speak, and I believe him when he says, a better man will make a better footballer. And that's been the start of our journey with this first Bati side versus Lebanon. We're trying to build a culture where we're building a better man.
Or character.
So yeah, it's all about character. So he's making the right decisions at the right time. Even if he makes a wrong decision, we're able to learn from that, and everyone's able to learn until we get to the point where we're practicing discipline off the field with our choices and our decision. That will actually make us a better player on the field with our choice and decision on the field. So by building the man, we're actually, hopefully, we're building a better Bati player.
Build the man, build the player.
Indeed.
So that's the part, that's the work that's going on off the field to build the good player on the field, so to speak. Now you had a brush with your challenges as well during your playing days, with alcohol and drugs and paid the price for it for a while. What are the lessons there that you learned that you can share with our viewers?
Yeah, I think first of all, when you play NRL, you get put on a pedestal or in the limelight, and you actually start to see that person as you. Like you think that's you, but it's not really. Like you're in here. And I think the real lesson I learned, and probably later in life and maybe too late, and this is why we really want to share the message with young players, that you have to be you first. You can't be 2 different people. You can't be the rugby league player, but then be this bad boy or party boy or ill-disciplined person over here. Because if you practice ill-discipline over here, you'll actually practice ill-discipline on the field under pressure. So when we're, Chaplain Elijah talks about the inner man. So having more of the inner man, the strong character, and we work on the inner man more than the outer man. I think the outer man is all the ego and the show and I'm an NRL player, and I think that can really get you in trouble.
All right. Fascinating insights into how we're developing rugby league in the country. You're watching Simpson at 8. Don't go away, we'll be back after the break. Welcome back to Simpson at 8. Now, Brandon, Costin, Fiji and Bati league coach. Now, most of our best rugby league players, some would argue, are now playing top-level rugby in Australia, in the NRL, yes, which is the best competition in the world. Yep. And then we have this local competition. And there's always this debate about whether you use local-based players who have been coming in and turning out and committing day in or week in, week out, and those that are, in Australia, playing at the highest level there. So, who are exposed to playing against the best players in the world every week as well. So how do we ensure that our local players can match the level, the standards that our NRL players in Australia are accustomed to?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question, because like when you look, my job as Bati coach is to pick the 17 best rugby league players in the world that are available to play for Fiji. Now, they all play professional rugby league. The 17 best all play professional rugby league either in UK or Australia or New Zealand. So I think the first thing is our local player has to be involved in a full-time professional competition. That's the only way they can grow, but then compete with the NRL player that's in a full-time professional competition. So, there has been news last week that's come out that there will be a professional rugby league side based in Fiji. At the moment, the FNRL board is discussing with the New South Wales Cup bid on how they're going to partner and work together.
So that's not finalised yet? I thought that was finalised.
They haven't signed the agreement as yet, but it's as close to finalised as possible. I think the FNRL are putting things in place that are going to best suit the players in Fiji, because that's really who they're looking after. Like, they really want to make sure that that local player in Fiji gets looked after first and foremost.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the final box that'll get ticked off. But what we will have is local players playing in a full-time, professional rugby league competition.
Yes, and it's just, just a level down from the NRL.
Yes.
Really.
But
and a chance to be exposed into...
That's exactly right, because the beauty is they can go up into that next level by playing really well or playing consistently, or lots of hard work and hard effort at this level. They'll get bigger professional contracts to play in the NRL.
Also the exposure.
Absolutely.
That they will not get playing here, they'll get, because that's televised as well.
Yeah, be televised. They'll be playing in front of NRL head coaches. They'll be playing in front of NRL scouts and development managers, football managers, every second week in Sydney. And then that team will travel here the week after.
So you see that as a key component, really,
Absolutely.
of getting them to develop, because otherwise, I mean, the team you picked to play Lebanon was just one local player.
Yes, it was.
And the rest was overseas. So that was because you picked what you saw was the best Fiji had to offer for that game?
Well,
or what was available to you?
We always, in our Fijian sides, we always do it really hard with halfbacks and hookers, playmakers. So, we've got a young player that played in the resident series, Penioni Tangi Tuimua, and he played really well. He's only 20, he's a halfback, and it was my idea to take him over to Sydney and just be around the team and train and not play. Like, I really didn't want to affect his confidence or anything by thrusting him in when he was not ready. But we ended up getting 5 injuries and he had to play, and he really played well. Like, he did a really good job, and we're in the process now of working on what he needs to do to now be more consistent at that level. And a big one for, he's only a young kid and
yeah, so
put some size on.
He's got talent. Now, are you seeing other players in that mold locally?
Yes, very much so, yes. We do have some really good young players. We do have some really good athletic players. But the one thing that's missing is they're not involved in a full-time professional squad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I sort of draw a bit of a parallel with the Sevens. So they are the absolute best Sevens team in the world, bar none. They've won a gold medal. Everyone knows who the Fiji Sevens team is. They've been training full-time for 6, 8, 9 years. So they've been training in this full-time squad for so long that they compete with other players who train in full-time squads. And this is what rugby league's been missing forever. No player in Fiji is part of a full-time professional squad.
Because even the secondary schools league competition, which is, quite strongly contested, there's a lot of passion there, the competition's quite strong. But then, the players move on in the second term and play union, so they don't have that consistency in playing that. And so players are switching between coaches, we discussed earlier. Now, why do you think league is better suited for Fijian players? So what's your...
No, like both games are contact sports, and Fijians are powerful. They're powerful athletes. Powerful athletes are suited to contact sports. So I wouldn't say they're more suited to rugby league over rugby union. And if we had a young rugby league kid that got a contract in rugby union, well, we'd be so happy. Like, really at this
So you don't see that as a competition going on?
No, not at all. It's about the young kids. Like, I want to be head coach that promotes young men and women moving to the level they want to play at. So if
regardless of the code.
if someone gets a contract in rugby union, like, we should be really happy for our small part in that development. If we're making that player better, if we're assisting that family, that community and that village, growing, then that's wonderful, like, to give back to Fiji. Definitely not competitive with rugby union at all. I've had good chats with John McKee and Gareth Baber. They're definitely not competitive either.
So you think the two codes can move together side by side and both thrive?
We know rugby union is always the more popular, and has been for a long time. Rugby league is really trying to find its feet, and
because you're more or less going after the same pool of players.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah. So being able to provide that full-time training squad may attract a couple of rugby union players because they get paid an allowance. That money can then go back to assist financially with their family, and they get to train full-time every day. Right.
You will have time to develop these local players for 2021 because you're now based here, and that World Cup will be in Britain. So we've talked about the kind of things that you want to develop: the off the field, on the field, building the man and the player. And then you've got New South Wales Cup. Now, you thinking we'll start next year on that?
Oh, definitely. It'll be in next year.
It'll be in the competition. How will that work? Will we play some games here, or will they all be based there?
Be home and away. Home and away. Yeah.
So the team will be based here.
Yes.
Okay. So it's very local. It's a local.
It'll be all local-based players.
All local-based players.
So the players that are playing in Vodafone Cup now,
so from
or on island
Bulldogs,
now,
Nandera Panthers, or the Roosters.
If you're born in Fiji,
you're in. So we now got 3 more big assignments for the end of the year.
Yes.
We got the Australian Prime Minister's 13. How is that going to work?
So the Prime Minister's 13 has always been played in Papua New Guinea, and it always was played on Independence Day. The game in Fiji will be played the day after Independence Day. But it's always been about Australia willing to help PNG develop as a rugby league nation. So the same goes now. It's Australia willing to help Fiji grow as a rugby league nation. So this will be it for our local players.
So only local players will be...
Or there'll be no Bati players,
No
there'll be
Bati.
no NRL players. This is a real opportunity for the local player.
But this will be chosen by the Australian...
No, actually our team will be chosen by our Prime Minister.
Okay.
Their team is chosen by their Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, right.
Yes,
So it's a Prime Minister selection.
that's right. Yes.
But with local players.
yes, yes.
So that'll be a good one. So that's what you're saying, October
October
11?
11, yes.
All right. And then afterwards, we got the two, some would argue the two big assignments of the Samoa and Papua New Guinea.
Yes, yes.
What are you looking to do there?
Well, these games are important for us.
Because
for
we're
our-
ranked 5. We're ranked above
Yes,
them right now.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
ranked fifth.
And it's really important for our World Cup campaign. We do need to beat both of them
Right.
to keep improving our world ranking, that's true. And the reward for winning this 3-match sort of competition between PNG, Samoa and ourselves is we get to play against New Zealand and Tonga next year.
Right. So you join
That's
that
what we
competition.
need, yes, because that will just give
Because
us...
Tonga's ranked 4th in the
They're
world.
ranked
right now.
4th, New Zealand 2nd.
Mm. So that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
So we start with Samoa, then PNG, and then hopefully we get to move on to New Zealand and Tonga.
Brendan Costin, thank you for joining me on Simpson.
Thank you
at
very
8.
much, Dan. I
Yeah.
appreciated it.
You're watching. That was Simpson at 8 for the evening. Join me again next Thursday at the same time. Good night.